Hey everyone, today I'd like to make a video that's a little bit more hands-on with Docker. We'll be talking about Docker repositories. We'll write the commands that let us start and stop containers, the commands that let us pull images from a repository, push them up to a repository. We'll be talking a little bit about Docker tagging and essentially go over all the needs and requirements that will help you succeed in a role that requires you to know Docker. Now, to get started with today's video, I'm going to talk quickly about this thing called Docker Hub. Docker Hub is this place online that you can go to and you can actually create your own repositories. And a repository is basically just a database where you kind of store your images. So it's just like all of your images will go into here. Let's say image for, you have app 1. This is your image for app 2. They're all getting stored in this like listed view in this thing called the repository. And this repo or repository is a really nice place for you to store all of these, as well as pull and push to them, making changes. So we'll be pulling down from the repository onto our local computer with the command docker pull, and then we will push up a changed version of that image back up here. Now, as you guys may recall from my previous video, Docker is a technology that allows us to create containers, and in order to create containers we use images. These images include a sort of instruction. They're a template for what the container is going to look like. So what we do is we pull a image from Docker Hub and then we run it on our computer. And when we run the docker run command, it actually creates a container, and that container is based on that template or that image. So imaging is really a nice way to version control your application. We'll be talking a little bit about tagging, which is how you specifically are able to recognize what images you've pushed and pulled. And we'll talk a little bit about how to start and stop containers. So to get started, let's go ahead and head over to Docker Hub. Now, to go to Docker Hub, we're going to go to hub.docker.com. And once we go in, you'll see that it says build and ship any application anywhere. Docker Hub is the world's easiest way to create, manage, and deliver your team's container applications. So Docker Hub will be the place where we create repositories, where we will store our images, our unique application images, whenever we need to. We can sign up if we need to, and if you haven't already made an account, go ahead and make one, but I'm going to just sign in. It has stored my credentials here. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And now here we are greeted at the main page. You can either click down here to create your own repository, or you can also click up here at repositories and then create a repository. If we create a repository, one of the cool things we're able to do is, let's call this repository my first repo. We can give it a description. This is my first repo. And over here we can set the way that it will appear for other people. So whether we want it to be public or private. Now if it's private, only I can see the repository, but if it's public, that means that anybody can look it up. If I create an image that I want the whole world to have access to, then I will just set it as public. Down here you're able to link your GitHub or Bitbucket account, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and click create. Now that I've clicked create, it's showing me this page where it says, oh, if you want to push a new tag to this repository, so if you want to push an image with this tag, all you got to do is run this command, which is pretty cool. So Docker already kind of hooks it up with some helpful command tidbits over here, but we're going to go ahead and go back into repositories, and we'll see our repository, my first repo, right there. Now, the next thing I really want to get into is working with Docker from the command line. Most of the time you're probably not going to be looking at the Docker Hub UI, and chances are you're going to be wanting to run your containers and your images on a server. So pushing and pulling images, running your containers, all these things are happening on the command line. So let's go ahead and get started with the command line. The first thing to do is go ahead and make sure you have Docker. If you don't have Docker and you type in the word Docker, something else would have showed up, but as you can see, mine is telling me all of this information about Docker. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. the first thing we want to do is log in. Now if I write docker login, it's actually going to show us this text right here, log in with your Docker ID to push and pull images from Docker Hub. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. My username and my password. Warning, your password will be stored unencrypted, configure credentials, and login succeeded. So it's giving us a warning up here about how it's not encrypted and the Docker password is actually in this directory somewhere, but we're not going to worry too much about that. If you guys are worried about that, then that is something we can talk about in some future videos. So I'm going to go ahead and clear. Now that I'm logged into Docker, one of the things I want to do is pull an image from Docker Hub. And to do that, I can either go back to Docker Hub and simply search for a type of image that I want. So let's say I need an image for Ubuntu. I can search Ubuntu and you can see a list of different Ubuntu images. So we have ones over here, let's say this one, and you'll see if you run this command docker pull Ubuntu, you'll actually pull this image down into your computer. So let's go ahead and actually pull Ubuntu. If you go to one of the other ones, for example, though, before we do that, you'll see that they just have different names, so docker pull whatever. And to pull a specific type or a specific version of it, one of the things you can do is go ahead and see their tags, and they'll have different tags depending on what version or how to identify a specific version of this docker pull Ubuntu, right? So we're going to pull Ubuntu, but which version? If we write docker pull Ubuntu and that's it, we're actually going to be pulling down the latest version of that image. But let's say we wanted to go back a few and we wanted to pull this one called like Xenio, which was updated a month ago. Or we wanted to pull this one called Trusty. We'd actually run a command that looked like docker pull Ubuntu and then a colon and then the tag. But we're okay with pulling the latest version of Ubuntu. So let's go ahead and pull the Ubuntu image from Docker Hub. To do that, we'll just do docker pull Ubuntu. You'll see that it's defaulting to the tag latest. It's pulling down from here, and we can check if we have our image ready for us by doing docker image ls. And now we can see, oh hey, we pulled from the repository Ubuntu. We have the tag latest on it. This is the image ID. This is when it was created, and that's the size of our image. Now the whole point of pulling an image, the whole point of working with these images is so that we can start up these things called containers. And containers are these isolated versions of our application. We want to use our Ubuntu image and start up a container, and to do that we're going to run the command docker run, and then we're going to say -it, which means interactive, -d, which is for detached, so that it runs in the background, and we're going to specify the image name, which is Ubuntu. When we run this command, we'll see a sort of code appear here that says a whole bunch of numbers and letters, and that's actually the container ID. To find this container ID, we will run a command called docker container ls, and that'll actually show us all of the containers we're currently running locally. So here we'll see that container ID, which was up here. It was really long up here, but it shortened it up for us right here. We can see that this is the image, this is the command. It was created 16 seconds ago. It's been up for 15 seconds. And this is actually a shorthand name that Docker creates. You know, some of them are pretty random, so you have tender_Callum here. But these names will be unique, and instead of working with the container ID, we can just use this name. Now, let's say we want to stop our container. If we wanted to do that, we can just do docker container stop tender_Callum, and it'll print out the name. And if we do docker container ls, we'll see that it's gone. And if we want to restart our container, we can actually do docker container start, and then just take that old name and go ahead and run that, and then docker container ls. And here we have it, it's back up running. So that's just some of the quick ways to stop and start a container. If you were looking for a way to inspect some stuff about the container, we can do docker container docker inspect tender underscore column, and you'll see that it's going to print out a bunch of information about our container. So give us the status, stuff about the PID, the restart count, console size, some of the masked paths, the host name, environment path, network settings. All of these things are available with the docker inspect command. So if I go ahead and clear this up and check on our containers again, we'll see that all of them are running. But now let's say we made a change to docker image Ubuntu here, and we wanted to push up this image to our repository. To do that, we actually run a command called docker tag, and then the name of our image, which is Ubuntu, and we'll go ahead and tag Ubuntu with the name of our username, so Sama script, and then the repository name. So we'll make our repository called my first repo. And now if I do docker image ls, we see Osama script / my first repo. Now what this is going to allow us to do is actually get this thing ready to be pushed up to our repository and be viewable by everybody around the world. So if you head over to the the Docker Hub docs or Docker docs, you can actually just see that we can tag it, and then we can run this command called docker push. So we're going to go ahead and push up our image. So we'll do docker push, take this piece right here, and you'll see that it's pushing our image to Docker. Now if I head on over to Docker and I go on over to my repositories, you will see my first repo, but if I hit refresh, you will see my first repo right here, and that's actually the one that we created again. That was different from the first one we made. The first one we made had these dashes in it, and this one's called my first repo. This is the one that we just pushed up to. So that's really quickly in a nutshell how you can push and pull from Docker Hub. So that was really quickly how to work with Docker. This is just some of the basic commands that you need to know when you're working with Docker at a job or on your own. Knowing how to start and stop a container, knowing how to push and pull from Docker Hub, being able to inspect a Docker container. All of these things are key concepts and will allow you to succeed further in your goals working with Docker or virtualization.